This is always a big question of how do I get my information and why do I come up with my thought processes. So I'm going to help my guy out here, the Unc. He wanted to know, as far as the book, Daniel chapter 10, how did I get my information? Where's the resources from? I basically call my research rabbit hole researching. I call it that because what happens is a fact. I started reading, going over Daniel, and in going over Daniel, I always wondered about that chapter. So I went and I read it again. And when I was reading, I was like, okay, Prince of Persia. The angel Michael was held up by the Prince of Persia, by a Prince of Persia. So then I Googled Persia, during the time of Daniel, Persia, who conquered Babylon? Since I know that they were released from Babylon. Well, that was Darius. So after seeing that, okay, Darius. So then I look up Persian King Darius religion. Then you will come up with Zoroastrianism. Then I researched Zoroastrianism. I didn't have to, but I already knew it, but I researched it again. What do they worship in Zoroastrianism? Well, there is Agramanya is the negative portion of God in the Zoroastrianism. So that would be the devil. So that's where you come. The Prince of Persia must be Agramanya or one of his other demons or something of that nature. So that's how you get the Prince of Persia that Michael must have been fighting against, according to the story. And then I went on to talk about in that video about Michael's talking about the Son of Man. So instead of just saying Son of Man, oh, that's Jesus. No, that's modern takes on it, or that's, centuries after the story of Daniel supposedly happened would be the take on it. So I said, no, in ancient Hebrew, what does Son of Man mean? Okay, in the likeness and image of man. Then I also researched who else called themselves Son of Man in the Old Testament. And that's when you get the verses concerning like Ezekiel, when he described himself as the Son of Man. So that's how I would do that research and going down that rabbit hole to figure out more information concerning it. Now, one thing that I always do as well is I may type in ancient Hebrew description of Son of Man.edu. That will give me college professors or PhD papers written by, and you might have to go like page 2, page 3, page 4, written by, or lectures by college professors. And I generally look at the secular churches, secular schools, because in the secular schools, it's just a class on religious studies. It doesn't already have the predetermined landing point that it must fit the Bible in order for them to teach it. That way, I'm not getting something that somebody's already decided what the answer is going to be before they even did the research. I'm getting information from people who are teaching in colleges and universities that are just teaching whatever the history has determined that it is, or whatever the words means, and that sort of thing. That way, I gain more clarity without a predetermined landing point. So this is the way that I do the majority of my research today. Back in the day when I was younger, 20s, 30s, I would read so many other people's books, and this book and that book and that book, and then trying to remember all the references for books that I read 30 years ago is way too difficult. The internet has made things far easier. It's just that I qualify each resource by identifying where they got their information from, who they are, and what's their believability, and if they have a predetermined landing point. But then I get all the information and then realize, and to bring forth my understanding so I can walk in the wisdom of that. That's just a process of critical thinking and using critical thinking as to how you get your research. So the Unc, I hope that benefits you in your research. And if you find that that's a method that works well for you, then great. If it doesn't work well for you, then you can go through the process of finding different authors who have written on different things. Just always remember what KRS One said: if you don't know the history of the author, then you don't know what you're reading. So with that, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.